Anime in 2025 was one of those years where it felt like the industry collectively locked in. Fewer safe bets, more risks, bigger swings, and somehow most of them actually landed. We got global event anime, sleeper hits that came out of nowhere, adaptations that exceeded expectations, and studios clearly pushing their limits instead of coasting. And the anime on this list? These weren't just good for the season shows. These were the ones that defined the year, sparked arguments, broke records, and lived rent-free in everyone's head long after the episodes ended. Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, hello. I'm your neighborhood senpai, and this is my list on the best anime of 2025. In this video, I'm ranking what I genuinely believe were the best anime of 2025, from sleeper hits to absolute monsters of the medium. I'll be breaking down why each one earned its spot, what it did better than the rest, and who it's actually for, whether you're here for hype, trauma, vibes, or straight-up anime cinema. Before we jump in, do me a favor. Let me know in the comments what you think the #1 spot has to be, which anime you think got robbed this year, and whether 2025 was better or worse than the last few anime years. And if you enjoy anime rankings that actually explain themselves, hit like, subscribe, and share this with that one friend who swears anime fell off. That's enough of my yapping. Let's begin, shall we?
彼はこの焼きサバパンとか好きそうだ。そういやまだ名前聞いてなかったな。
What's up? Can a low come up in your crib? Man, fuck you. My nigga don't hate me cause I'm beautiful, nigga. Maybe you got rid of that old yee ass haircut you got, you get some bitches on your dick. Oh, better yet, maybe Tanisha will call your dog ass if she ever stop fucking with that brain surgeon, the lawyer she fucking with, nigga. Bruh.
Sliding in at the very bottom of this list, I had to start with something rough around the edges, loud and a little feral. And yeah, that's Gachiakuta. This is one of those shows where the second it starts, you can already tell it's not trying to be polite or pretty, and honestly, I respect that. The whole thing follows Rudo, a kid from the slums who gets framed for his foster father's murder and then casually thrown into the pit, which is basically society's out-of-sight, out-of-mind dumpster, except the trash fights back. Down there, monsters are made of discarded junk, and Rudo realizes he can turn objects he genuinely cares about into weapons. At first, it's all about revenge. Very loud, very angry revenge. But what surprised me is how quickly that motivation starts to evolve into something deeper. What really hooked me is that this anime actually has something to say. It leans hard into classism and value, showing how the people at the top throw away not just objects but entire lives, while the people at the bottom survive by caring about what everyone else discards. Rudo's power system being tied to emotional attachment isn't just a gimmick, it's the point. The more he cares, the stronger he gets, and watching him shift from a non-stop screaming rage machine into someone who wants to protect others is way more satisfying than I expected going in. Visually, this show absolutely pops. The graffiti-inspired line work and gritty street aesthetic make it stand out immediately in a sea of clean, safe-looking anime. Bone Studio clearly had fun here, especially during the action scenes, which go insanely hard when they need to. That said, I'm not going to pretend it's flawless. The early episodes are heavy on exposition, some of the CGI trash monsters clash pretty badly with the 2D characters, and Rudo's early stage yelling can get exhausting fast. Like, we get it, my guy, life is pain. Still, this ended up being one of my favorite surprises of the year. It didn't roll in with massive hype, but it earned attention by doing its own thing and committing to it fully. Knowing that the manga creator used to assist Atsushi Okubo from Soul Eater and Fire Force just makes everything click. The sharp designs, the wild eyes, the chaotic energy, it's all there. For me, what really makes Gachiakuta stand out is how tightly its themes are woven into every part of the story. Nothing feels accidental. The world, the power system, and the character arcs all orbit the same idea of value, care, and what society chooses to throw away. So if you're craving something gritty, stylish, and unapologetically rough, something that feels rebellious instead of algorithm approved, this one's worth your time. At the very least, it proves that 2025 still had room for anime that takes risks and doesn't ask for permission first. And with all that trash, rage, and emotional damage out of the way, it's time to pivot because the next entry drops the filth and fury and replaces it with something much softer, and somehow just as dangerous.
After all that grime, screaming, and emotional whiplash from the last entry, this one feels like stepping into a warm bakery after being emotionally drop-kicked down a flight of stairs. And yeah, I'm talking about The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. This is the exact moment on the list where my blood pressure finally dropped. At its core, this anime is a romance, but not the frustrating kind that survives purely on misunderstandings and poor communication. I'm following Rintaro, who goes to a delinquent boys' school, and Kaoruko, who attends an elite rich girls' academy right next door. They meet at his family's bakery, sparks fly almost immediately, and instead of dragging things out for 20 episodes, the story actually lets them talk. Wild concept, I know. What really sold me is how the conflict stays external. The drama isn't will they or won't they, it's the social pressure, prejudice, and reputation attached to their schools. Their relationship itself is healthy, supportive, and refreshingly honest, which honestly feels illegal in romance anime sometimes. On top of that, Rintaro's friend group completely flips the delinquent trope on its head. These guys aren't edgy bullies. They're emotionally open, supportive, and unashamed to cry, and I did not expect that going in. Visually, Cloverworks absolutely understood the assignment. Everything is soft, warm, and gentle, like the entire show is filmed through golden hour lighting. It's cozy without being boring, and calm without feeling empty. That said, I'll be real, if you live for chaos, screaming matches, or high-stakes romantic suffering, this might feel a little too nice. Rintaro also fits the scary face but kind heart trope, which isn't exactly revolutionary, even if it's handled well here. The reason I put this on the list is simple. It's the best romance anime of 2025, hands down. Not because it's dramatic or flashy, but because it actively refuses to stress you out. In a year stacked with trauma, death, and emotional destruction, this show chose peace, communication, and genuine affection, and somehow made that compelling. One of my favorite things about it is knowing that the manga originally blew up online because panels of the male characters crying and hugging went viral. People weren't calling it peak romance, they were calling it wholesome. And honestly, that reputation is deserved. What makes this anime stand out for me is how confident it is in being gentle. It doesn't try to manufacture tension just to keep you watching. It trusts the characters, and it trusts the audience. So if you want something that feels like emotional comfort food, something that heals instead of hurts, this is the one. I'd honestly recommend it to anyone who just wants to relax and remember that healthy relationships can exist, even in anime. And with all that warmth and emotional stability safely tucked away, let's pivot again, because the next entry throws us right back into competition, pressure, and a surprisingly intense race to the top. Just when you think this list is about to stay calm and wholesome, I yank the steering wheel hard into something way more intense than it has any right to be, and that's Musume Cinderella Gray. And listen, I know what you're thinking. Horse girls. I thought the same thing. Stay with me. This one follows Oguri Cap, a stoic, almost painfully quiet racer from the countryside who transfers to the Central Academy and immediately gets looked down on for her background. From there, it turns into a full-on sports underdog story where every race feels less like a competition and more like a battlefield. This is not an idol show, and it makes that clear very fast. What surprised me the most is how seriously this anime takes itself. The story structure feels closer to Rocky or Creed than anything you'd expect from the Uma Musume franchise. Training is brutal, losses actually matter, and Oguri Cap doesn't win because she's special, she wins because she endures more than everyone else. She barely talks, but every race says everything for her, especially when exhaustion and hunger become part of her identity. The races themselves are easily the highlight for me. Cygame's pictures absolutely cooked here. The sense of speed is insane, and the way the art style shifts during intense moments, getting rougher, uglier, and sketchier, makes every sprint feel painful in the best way. That said, I won't pretend the concept isn't a barrier. The ears and tails are still there, and if you can't mentally get past that, this show might never click for you no matter how good it is. The reason this landed on my list is simple. It's the best sports anime of 2025. It took a franchise known for cute aesthetics and turned it into a sweat-soaked, high-pressure drama that genuinely rivals shows like Haikyuu or Blue Lock in intensity. The only reason it's not higher is because it's still niche by default. You're either willing to give horse girls a chance or you're not. One of the coolest things about this anime is that it's actually rooted in real history. Oguri Cap was a real racehorse in late 1980s Japan who came from a rural track and became a national hero, and the anime straight up recreates real races from that era. Once I learned that, everything about her story hit harder. What makes this stand out for me is how unapologetically gritty it is. It doesn't care if you think the concept sounds silly, it commits fully and dares you to take it seriously. So, if you want a sports anime that actually makes your heart race and your palms sweat, I'd say give this a shot, even if the premise makes you hesitate. Worst case, you bounce early. Best case, you end up yelling at your screen over a horse girl sprinting like her life depends on it. And with the finish line crossed and lungs burning, it's time to slow the pace just a bit, because the next entry isn't about racing forward, it's about closing out an entire era. At this point in the list, we're not just talking about anime anymore. We're talking about history closing its book. Because yeah, this is My Hero Academia final season. And whether you loved it, hated it, or screamed at your screen, you felt it. This final season is all about the last war. No training arcs, no breathing room, no next time will be better energy. Just heroes and villains throwing everything they have at each other while society itself is falling apart. Deku's final clash with Shigaraki isn't just about winning a fight. It's about deciding whether saving someone is still possible when everything says it shouldn't be. Meanwhile, Class 1A and the pro heroes are fighting all for one, in what feels like the longest, messiest, most emotionally loaded group project ever. What I appreciated most here is how much weight the story puts on legacy. Every major character is dealing with the consequences of choices made seasons ago. Bakugo's growth, the Todoroki family trauma, even the idea of what it actually means to be a hero in a broken system. When it hits hard, especially if you've been watching the show for years like I have. And visually, Bones absolutely emptied the tank. The big Deku versus Shigaraki moments look insane. The scale is massive, and the animation during the final stretch is some of the best the series has ever had. That said, I'm not going to dodge the elephant in the room. The ending is controversial, and for good reason. The pacing feels rushed in places, some resolutions feel oddly restrained, and Deku's final outcome sparked more debates than a Twitter tier list. I didn't hate it, but I also get why a lot of people walked away conflicted. Still, the reason this makes my list isn't about perfection, it's about significance. This was the end of one of the defining anime of its generation. You don't get to ignore that, even if parts of it didn't land for you. The anime staff even worked directly with Kohei Horikoshi to add extra scenes and flesh things out more than the manga did, specifically because of the backlash, and honestly, that effort shows. What makes this stand out to me is the sheer sense of closure. Flawed or not, this season feels like a genuine attempt to answer the question the series has been asking since episode 1. What kind of future do heroes actually create? So if you've been on this ride from the beginning, you owe it to yourself to see how it ends. Even if you disagree with the choices, even if you nitpick the finale, this is one of those you had to be there anime moments. And now that one era is officially done and dusted, it's time to pivot again, because the next entry doesn't end a story, it cranks science, ambition, and global chaos up to 11. With one generation wrapped up and put to rest, I wanted to shift gears into something that feels forward-looking, loud in the brain, and aggressively optimistic. And that lands us right in Dr. Stone Science Future. This is the point on the list where my inner nerd sat up straight and went, oh yeah, we're cooking again. This season takes Senku and the Kingdom of Science out of their comfort zone and throws them into the global stage. We're no longer just rebuilding villages, we're hopping continents. The goal is wild, but very on brand. Secure corn for fuel and alcohol, hunt down super alloys, and eventually build a rocket. Standing in the way of that dream is Dr. Zeno, a former NASA scientist who is basically Senku if he chose dominance instead of cooperation, complete with guns, planes, and a sniper guarding his empire. What I really liked here is how the tone shifts. Earlier seasons were about rediscovering civilization step by step, but this one feels like science as a geopolitical weapon. We get moral gray areas, military tactics, and real tension around whether knowledge should unite people or control them. Watching Senku face someone just as smart, but way less idealistic, adds a layer of threat the series desperately needed. The pacing is fast, sometimes almost too fast, but I'll give it credit. There are basically no bad episodes. Every arc pushes something forward, and splitting the cast into different teams lets side characters finally shine instead of just standing around yelling Senku every 5 minutes. Dr. Zeno is easily my favorite antagonist the series has had. He's calm, terrifying, and way too realistic. Now, I'll be honest, this is also where the science starts to feel like magic. When they're building planes and complex tech and what feels like a long weekend, you kind of have to suspend disbelief harder than ever before. It didn't ruin the experience for me, but I did catch myself laughing like, yeah, okay, sure, why not? The reason this sits comfortably on my list is consistency. In a year full of extremes, Dr. Stone stayed reliable, smart, and hopeful. It's rare to see a show this optimistic about human progress without feeling cheesy or naive, and that alone makes it stand out in 2025's lineup. One cool thing worth knowing is that this is technically just the beginning of the end. It's a split cour final season, meaning while this part aired in 2025, the true ending is still looming just over the horizon, which gives everything here that calm before the storm energy. What makes this anime special for me is how it treats intelligence as the power fantasy. No chosen ones, no destiny, just curiosity, teamwork, and refusing to give up on humanity. So if you enjoy problem solving, engineering, or just watching people speedrun the entire tech tree of civilization, this is still one of the most satisfying anime you could watch. It might not be the flashiest entry on the list, but it's one of the smartest. And now that we've built planes, crossed oceans, and stared down science itself, it's time to pivot hard, because the next entry takes romance, violence, and emotional damage and shoves them into a single explosive package. Right when you're feeling smart and hopeful after all that science optimism, this entry comes in and emotionally clotheslines you. And yeah, that's Chainsaw Man, the movie, Reze Arc. This is the point on the list where I realized 2025 really said, feelings are optional. On the surface, this one looks deceptively simple. Denji meets Reze, a girl who works at a cafe, treats him like an actual human being, and goes on normal, almost wholesome dates with him. For Denji, that alone feels like winning the lottery. Of course, because this is Chainsaw Man, that happiness lasts about 5 minutes before it's revealed she's the bomb devil, sent to rip his heart out. Literally. What hit me hardest is how this arc is basically a tragic romance pretending to be a battle shonen. The movie builds this perfect, awkward teen love story just to tear it apart piece by piece. Denji isn't fighting because he wants to be a hero, he's fighting because he wants to be loved. And watching that vulnerability get exploited is genuinely painful, in a way the series does extremely well. Visually, this movie is fascinating. The direction leans way more into rough, manga-accurate line work and aggressive color choices, moving away from the hyper-cinematic look of Season 1. I loved that shift. It feels raw and chaotic, which matches Denji's emotional state perfectly. That said, I can't ignore that some of the CGI-heavy action scenes, especially the high-speed chases, clash hard with the new 2D style. It's jarring, even if the intent is clear. The pacing is another thing I'm torn on. As a movie, it moves fast, almost too fast at times. There were moments where I wished this arc had the breathing room of a full season just so certain emotional beats could linger longer. Still, for a single runtime, it packs an absurd amount of tension and heartbreak. The reason this made my list is ambition. This is one of the boldest anime movies of the year, not because it's comfortable or crowd-pleasing, but because it commits fully to emotional destruction. The production team even swapped directors and character designers in response to criticism of Season 1, which takes guts, and the result feels distinctly different rather than safe. One fun detail I love is that this change in staff wasn't random. It was a direct response to Japanese fans saying Season 1 felt too live action and not anime enough. This movie very clearly said, fine, we'll go feral then. And honestly, respect. What makes this stand out to me is how efficiently it breaks you. No filler, no mercy, just dates, bombs, and regret. So, if you want an anime movie that gives you butterflies and then immediately detonates them, this is required viewing. It's messy, tragic, and unforgettable. And now that we've survived the most emotionally catastrophic date night in anime history, let's keep spiraling, because the next entry looks cute, sounds harmless, and will absolutely ruin your mental state if you're not ready for it. If you thought the last entry was emotionally cruel, this one doesn't just hurt you, it sits you down, smiles politely, and then ruins your week. Because this is Takopi's Original Sin. And fair warning, this is where the list stops being fun for a second. The setup sounds harmless, almost wholesome. Takopi is a tiny alien from Happy Planet who comes to Earth with one mission: spread joy. He meets Shizuka, a young girl living in crushing poverty and abuse, and decides to help her using happy gadgets like time travel and reality-altering tools. In theory, it should fix everything. In practice, it turns into a slow-motion disaster. What absolutely destroyed me is how this story treats good intentions. Takopi genuinely wants to help, but he doesn't understand human cruelty, cycles of abuse, or how trauma actually works. Every time he tries to fix something, he makes it worse, and watching that spiral happen is deeply uncomfortable in a way anime rarely attempts. It's basically a deconstruction of Doraemon, except instead of hijinks, you get emotional devastation. Visually, the contrast is brutal. The show looks like a children's anime, soft colors, round character designs, mascot energy, and then uses that aesthetic to deliver some of the darkest subject matter of the year. Bullying, neglect, suicide, and adult failure are all on the table, and the way the cuteness clashes with reality makes everything hit harder instead of softer. I won't sugarcoat it, this is not an easy watch. It's short, only 6 episodes, but every single one lands like a punch to the chest. The ending, which tries to reach for a form of redemption, didn't fully work for everyone, and I get that. After everything that happens, some people felt it was too gentle. Personally, I saw what it was trying to do, even if it didn't completely stick the landing. The reason this sits at number 6 for me is impact. This was the show critics and serious drama fans couldn't stop talking about in 2025. It's not something I'd casually rewatch, but it's something that stays with you, whether you want it to or not. One detail I think matters a lot is that the original manga won a major excellence award for how it portrayed modern societal darkness through a child's perspective. Knowing that makes the anime's choices feel very deliberate instead of just shock value. What makes this stand out to me is how unapologetic it is. It doesn't try to entertain you, it challenges you. It asks whether kindness means anything if you don't understand the harm you're trying to fix. So, if you're looking for something light, skip this. But if you want a short, brutal, emotionally honest story that will leave you staring at the ceiling afterward, this one absolutely earns its place here. And now that we've fully stepped into existential despair, let's pull ourselves back towards something louder and bigger, because the next entry goes from quiet trauma straight into full-scale war.
After sitting in quiet misery and existential dread for a bit, this next one doesn't ease you back in. It kicks the door down and says, all right, everyone's fighting now. Because this is ReZero, Starting Life in Another World, Season 3. And yeah, this is where ReZero stops just emotionally torturing Subaru and starts letting him command chaos. This season drops us straight into the Pristella arc, where all the royal selection camps converge on the Watergate city, only for the witch cult to show up and turn the entire place into a war zone. Instead of looping alone and suffering in silence like earlier seasons, Subaru is finally forced into a leadership role. He's coordinating people, planning strategies, and using return by death as intel instead of a personal curse. And watching that growth felt incredibly earned. What really surprised me is how different this season feels tonally. This isn't a mystery box or psychological horror arc, it's straight up war. Battles are happening everywhere at once, viewpoints shift constantly, and almost every side character gets a moment to shine. Seeing characters like Wilhelm and Garfield get massive emotional payoffs was honestly one of my favorite parts, because ReZero finally cashes in on years of buildup. The action is easily the best the series has ever looked. The choreography is sharper, the scale is bigger, and the show finally feels confident enough to go full blockbuster without losing its identity. That said, I get why some fans were a little overwhelmed. There are a lot of characters, a lot of moving parts, and if you loved ReZero specifically for its slow burn psychological suffering, this season might feel like a tonal shift. Still, the reason this landed so high on my list is simple. It proves ReZero isn't just about pain, it's about growth, responsibility, and heroism earned the hard way. The series finally lets Subaru be competent without magically fixing his flaws, and that balance is hard to pull off. One thing that really stood out to me is how big of an event this season was. The premiere was basically treated like a movie in Japan, with a 90-minute opening episode that made it very clear this arc was a turning point, not just another continuation. What makes this season special for me is how it reframes return by death. It's no longer just trauma, it's a tool, and using it comes with the weight of everyone else's lives. So if you've stuck with ReZero this long, this season feels like a reward. It's loud, emotional, messy, and earned every bit of its hype. And now that we've survived an isekai war arc that feels like Avengers Endgame with trauma, it's time to shift tones again, because the next entry goes absolutely feral with style, color, and chaotic energy.
Right after all that war, trauma, and strategic suffering, this entry shows up like it just chugged 5 energy drinks and said, what if anime was fun but also terrifying? Because yeah, this is Dandadan Season 2, and this is where the list starts going completely unhinged in the best way. This season dives straight into the Evil Eye arc, bringing Gigi into the main cast, a childhood friend who is unfortunately possessed by an extremely angry yokai with unresolved issues. What follows is a non-stop blend of exorcisms, haunted houses, body horror, romance progression, and jokes that land so fast you barely have time to breathe before the next insane thing happens. What I love about Dandadan is that it refuses to pick a lane. One minute I'm laughing at absurd comedy, the next I'm watching genuinely creepy horror imagery, and then suddenly there's a heartfelt character moment that actually lands. This season especially leans into saving Gigi rather than just fighting him, and the tragic backstory of the Evil Eye adds way more emotional weight than I expected going in. Visually, this is where Science Saru absolutely flexes. The animation is wild, fluid, and experimental, with neon purples and greens burning into your retinas in the best possible way. The action never feels stiff, and the camera work constantly feels like it's trying something new. Add Kensuke Ushio's soundtrack into the mix, blending techno, rock, and chaos, and the whole thing feels like an audio-visual adrenaline rush. Now, I'll be honest, this season does not slow down, ever. The pacing can feel manic, especially in the middle stretch, and the humor is very specific. If gross-out jokes or unfiltered weirdness aren't your thing, this anime will absolutely test your patience. For me, though, that chaos is kind of the point. The reason this hit number 4 on my list is style. No other anime in 2025 had this level of raw energy and confidence. It knows exactly what it is, and it doesn't apologize for being loud, weird, or borderline ridiculous. One detail I really love is that the Evil Eye and Gigi are voiced by different actors who recorded together, which is why the personality switches feel so frantic and unsettling. That kind of production choice explains why the performances feel so alive. What makes Dandadan stand out to me is that it feels like anime without breaks. It's creative, unpredictable, and completely uninterested in playing safe. So if you want something that feels like a party, a horror movie, and a rom-com all smashed together at full speed, this is absolutely required viewing. And now that we've survived neon chaos and supernatural whiplash, it's time to slow things down just a bit, because the next entry trades insanity for intelligence, mystery, and one of the smartest protagonists of the year. After that neon-fueled chaos, this entry feels like lowering the volume, sharpening the focus, and actually using your brain, because this is the Apothecary Diaries Season 2. And honestly, this is where 2025 quietly flexed its writing muscles. This season drops me right back into the Imperial Palace alongside Mao Mao, who is still solving mysteries with poisons, medicine, and an almost concerning lack of fear for her own safety. The central thread revolves around a resurrection drug and a conspiracy tied to Sure, while smaller cases slowly stitch together a much bigger picture. On top of that, the dynamic between Mao Mao and Jinshi finally starts to simmer instead of just existing in the background. What I really love here is how much the show trusts its audience. This isn't flashy, and it's definitely not fast. It's a procedural mystery set in a historical court, where details matter, conversations matter, and every offhand comment might come back 3 episodes later. Watching Mao Mao work feels less like watching a hero and more like watching a hyper-competent gremlin with medical knowledge and zero chill. Mao Mao herself is easily my favorite protagonist of the year. She's cynical, observant, blunt, and completely uninterested in playing the role of a traditional anime lead. She solves problems because she's curious, not because she wants praise, and that makes her incredibly refreshing. The slow-burn romance with Jinshi also feels mature. No forced drama, just tension, implication, and mutual respect. Of course, this isn't for everyone. The pacing is slow, the dialogue is heavy, and if you're waiting for action scenes, you'll be waiting a long time. The middle stretch wanders through smaller cases before the main plot really kicks in, and I can see some people checking out there. For me, though, that patience pays off. The reason this lands at number 3 is simple. It's the smartest anime of 2025. It respects your intelligence, rewards attention, and delivers a level of narrative cohesion that most shows don't even attempt. It might not dominate social media the way action-heavy series do, but its quality is undeniable. One really cool side effect of this season is that it sparked renewed interest in traditional herbal medicine, to the point where museums in Japan and China actually partnered with the anime for exhibits. That's how deeply it commits to its historical angle. What makes this stand out to me is how grounded it feels. No power systems, no chosen ones, just observation, logic, and a sharp mind navigating a dangerous political environment. So, if you want something slow, intelligent, and deeply rewarding, this is one of the best experiences anime had to offer in 2025. And now that we've solved palace conspiracies and quietly outsmarted everyone in the room, it's time to flip the switch, because the next entry is pure spectacle, pure power fantasy, and absolutely not subtle about it.
At this point in the list, subtlety is officially dead, buried, and shadow summoned back to life. Because this is Solo Leveling Season 2, A Rise from the Shadow. And yeah, this is pure, unfiltered power fantasy done with zero shame. This season drops straight into the Jeju Island arc, where top-tier hunters from Japan and Korea team up to reclaim an island overrun by evolved giant ants. On paper, it's a national-scale raid. In reality, it's a countdown to Sung Jin Woo showing up and reminding everyone why balance is a myth. When the mission starts falling apart and the Ant King enters the chat, the tone shifts from operation to survival horror real fast. What really clicked for me this season is how clearly it establishes the gap between Jin Woo and everyone else. Season 1 was about growth. Season 2 is about dominance. There's no question of whether he'll win, it's about how badly. And instead of pretending otherwise, the anime leans into it. The shadows look incredible, the army feels massive, and every entrance is designed to make you go, yeah, it's over. A1 Pictures seriously leveled up here. The animation is sharper, darker, and way more confident, especially during the Ant King fight, which became the viral moment of the year for a reason. The pacing is also way better than Season 1. We actually spend time with side characters before Jinwoo arrives, which makes their fear and awe feel earned instead of rushed. Now, I'll be real. This show is not deep. Jinwoo doesn't struggle. He doesn't lose. Side characters exist mainly to hype him up and then get humbled. If you're looking for complex character arcs or moral dilemmas, this is not that anime, and it never pretends to be. The reason this sits at number 2 for me is execution. Solo Leveling knows exactly what it is and delivers it flawlessly. This is popcorn anime at its absolute peak. Clean animation, insane spectacle, and a protagonist designed to dominate timelines and comment sections alike. One detail I actually appreciate is how the anime handled the political tension between the Japanese and Korean hunter associations. In the original webtoon, it was way more antagonistic, but the anime softened it into arrogance rather than cartoon villainy, which honestly made the arc smoother and less distracting. What makes this stand out to me is how confidently it commits to hype. No apologies, no overthinking, just vibes, shadows, and overwhelming force. So if you want an anime that makes you feel unstoppable just by watching it, this is that experience. It's loud, glossy, and absurdly fun. And now, there's only one left. Because if this was the king of hype, the final entry is the king of everything: animation, spectacle, and global dominance.
And now we're at the top, where there was honestly never any real competition, because if you watched anime in 2025, you already know what this had to be. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba Infinity Castle. This wasn't just an anime release, this was an event. A global, unavoidable, your non-anime friends somehow know about this kind of event. The Infinity Castle arc throws the Demon Slayer core straight into Muzan's nightmare dimension, a reality-warping fortress where gravity doesn't matter and survival is optional. Everyone gets separated, death matches begin immediately, and it turns into a non-stop gauntlet against the remaining upper moons. Akaza, Doma, Kokushibo, no warm-ups, no filler, just pain, trauma, and beautifully animated suffering back to back. What really hit me is that this arc doesn't pretend to be anything other than the beginning of the end. There's almost no downtime. The story is focused entirely on confrontation, characters facing the demons tied directly to their worst memories and deepest trauma. Tanjiro and Giyu versus Akaza isn't just a fight, it's closure wrapped in violence, and it lands way harder because of that. And yeah, we need to talk about the animation. Ufotable did not just raise the bar, they threw it into orbit. The way the Infinity Castle shifts and folds around the characters is unreal, blending 3D environments with 2D animation so seamlessly it barely registers as CG. Every fight feels cinematic, every frame looks expensive, and it genuinely feels like you're watching the visual benchmark for modern anime. Now, if I'm being completely honest, this arc is basically all fighting. There's very little plot progression beyond survive and move forward, and it does end on a cliffhanger since this is part of a trilogy. If you're someone who needs constant narrative twists, that might bother you. For me, though, I didn't care. The emotional weight and sheer spectacle carried everything. The reason this is number 1 isn't just quality, it's impact. This movie shattered box office records worldwide, pulling in over $700 million and surpassing legendary international films. At that point, we're not even debating taste anymore. Anime stopped being niche a long time ago, and this movie made that impossible to ignore. One wild fact that still blows my mind is that Infinity Castle surpassed Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to become the highest-grossing international film in US history. That's not an anime stat, that's a cinema stat. What makes this stand out to me is dominance. Nothing else in 2025 touched this level of production, reach, or cultural presence. It didn't just succeed, it set the standard everyone else now has to chase. So why should you watch it? Because everyone did. Because it's the visual ceiling of the medium right now. And because whether you love Demon Slayer or not, this is what anime at full power looks like. And with that, yeah, that's the list. All right, now that the dust is settled and the rankings are officially out there, I think it's safe to say one thing. 2025 did not come to play.
Between massive global anime events, risky adaptations that actually paid off, and smaller shows that punched way above their weight, this year proved the industry isn't just surviving, it's evolving. Studios pushed visuals, creators took narrative risks, and anime as a whole felt less like seasonal content and more like cultural moments again. Whether you loved every pick or side-eyed half this list, the sheer range of quality in 2025 says a lot about where anime is headed, and honestly, the future looks stacked. Now, I want to hear from you. What anime was your personal number one of 2025? Which show do you think deserved to be on this list but didn't make it? And do you think 2025 was better than recent anime years or just different in a good way? If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment because I read those and I absolutely will argue back. Share this with a friend who's still catching up or someone who thinks anime peaked 5 years ago. No matter where you land on the rankings, I'm just glad we got a year where anime felt exciting again, where watching weekly releases actually meant something and conversations didn't die after 3 episodes. And that's it for this video. I hope you have an awesome day wherever you are. I also hope you have a happy new year. Stay awesome. Peace out.